Welcome to RD Tutorials. I'm Rajesh Dorbala, your instructor. Today we are going to discuss global influences on Indian consumer. Now, as our economy has opened up, Indian consumers have been exposed to global influences. And we can easily thank our satellite televisions and the internet. We are so much exposed to the cultures of various countries, and the Western culture is predominantly influencing our culture as well. So people in India have learned about foreign lifestyles and cultures. Now the process of acculturation is visible in their altered lifestyles. Okay, so you remember what is acculturation, right? Acculturation is we learn about other cultures through observation. Okay, so we can easily see this, that our lifestyle has been altered by the viewing of foreign television channels as well as the internet. Now the consequence of these influences are discussed in this lecture. Okay, so what are the consequences that has happened or that has altered our lifestyle? That is the main agenda of discussion today. So moving ahead. So this is the basic introduction that I have just discussed, and the consequences that have occurred. One is we have become a throwaway society. Okay, now influenced by consumerism, a consequence of globalization, people are taking to use and throw products. Earlier, let us say in India predominantly, what we used to do is we used to use a product, and if it fails to perform or if it breaks down, we used to get it repaired. The best example I remember is, during my childhood we used to use a lot of ballpoint pens, and once we used the pen, the refill was over. We used to purchase a refill and use the same pen again. But today, my kids, I can see them, once the refill is over, they throw away the pen, they purchase a new pen. So this is what an example of becoming a throwaway society is. Okay, so modern society, our society today, it encourages people to simply buy new products and throw away old ones. In many cities, for instance, one would be hard pressed to find a repair service for old appliances as well. The best thing I can give you an example that I've witnessed myself personally is I used to live in a country called I used to live in Maldives, and over there were hardly any repair shops, or hardly there were any people who could repair the electrical equipment. Now let's say if my washing machine breaks down, I just discard my washing machine and purchase a new one. And what do I do with the washing machine? I dump it somewhere close to the beach. Now, if you go to some corner of the island, you will find a lot of equipment like refrigerators, televisions, or washing machines dumped away just like that. And if I just seriously investigate what could be wrong with it, maybe a motor broke down, or maybe a small circuit or a chip broke down, so which could have easily been repaired. But what people do, they simply throw it out. Okay, same thing is evident in India as well today. So today we find it difficult to find places even to dump our old goods. In this case, like computers, mobile phones, or cars, consumers are encouraged to buy new models as soon as they are launched. Okay, a lot of marketing is oriented towards making such kind of things happen. Now, one consequence of this is that Indian cities today resemble garbage dumps. However, the throwaway culture helps companies sell their products. Okay, that also is very important. If the companies are able to sell their products, that also is very, very important. The other phenomenon that we have observed due to foreign influence is glocalization. Okay, that is localization plus globalization put together becomes glocalization. Okay, now Thomas Friedman in 2006 in his book called The World is Flat terms the intermingling of cultures as glocalization. Now, being open to other cultures while maintaining their own identities. Okay, I'm absorbing other cultures, but at the same time I remain intact. My identity remains intact. Now, Friedman, he writes that The more a culture easily absorbs foreign ideas and best practices and melds those with its own traditions, the greater the advantage it will have in a flat world. Okay, that is to say, I need to absorb, but I need to remain. I need to keep my identity intact. That will give me a competitive advantage in this flat world. Now, companies thus try to cater to all cultures. Okay. Now, next is customers have become more empowered. The same Friedman writes that new technologies make consumers more powerful. Earlier, companies were in control of consumers' behavior, but we can thank the new technologies where consumers are now in control of companies' behaviors. Friedman elaborates. He says that the internet and other tools have created means for every consumer to customize the prices, experiences, and services he or she wanted exactly. Now, he dubbed it as self directed consumer. Companies had to adapt, or they were, I would say, they were compelled, or they were forced to adapt their technology and business processes to empower their self-directed consumer. They create digital buffets for consumers to serve themselves. This has severely, I would say, this has drastically impacted consumer behavior in a huge way. The next is global communications. This digital era, we can communicate with anyone across the globe. I can write a comment on any Facebook post. Likewise, anyone can respond to my Quora question as well. Okay, that is what is global communications. So, Indian consumers today have access to movies and television shows that the rest of the world is watching. Likewise, advertisements are also broadcast on a single theme globally. The influence of mass media affects cultures and shapes the concepts of who we are, what is important to us, and how we live our lives. The change in people's attitudes due to this huge exposure is quite evident and visible in our lifestyles. Right? So, consumers acquire global beliefs and start following what they are exposed to. Have you ever been surprised like how we started celebrating these Valentine days or the Halloweens or the Thanksgiving days? This is just an influence of global communications, okay? And you can see the e-commerce companies, they are just pushing the envelope and they are trying to encash this global communications. We are celebrating all the foreign or Western festivals, right? So this was never a part of our culture, but due to globalization, I keep my identity. I do celebrate my festivals, but at the same time, I'm willing to celebrate the festivals of other cultures. That's again a beautiful thing to happen. Now, next change that is obvious is global demographic trends. Okay, as education and global trends catch on, the world is witnessing demographic trends that affect almost a majority of countries. Okay, and those effects could be like an increasing number of working women in the economy, a large number of single women, late marriages, a large proportion of single parent households, fewer children per household, right? India too also is witnessing similar trends to some extent. This implies that consumers in most countries are becoming similar and their behavior will also be similar in some respects. The youth today is becoming more and more homogeneous. In almost any country, the youth is becoming more and more homogeneous because we are so exposed to the kind of education. Today, if I talk to some of my students, they're more inclined to learn from videos on YouTube rather than listening to the experiences of their teachers. So, the YouTube videos can be accessed by students anywhere across the globe. So the learning, the knowledge acquired by today's students again becomes homogeneous, right? Then we have materialistic beliefs. This, this is a double-edged sword. It has its own merits and at the same time it has its demerits as well. Let's see what it is. The winds of liberalization that we started experiencing in the early 90s have changed the beliefs as well. Traditional Indian beliefs of contentment and spirituality are fast being replaced by materialism. People not only seek products to own and display, but also see them as part of their own personalities. Consumers love American products such as Levi's jeans or Apple phones. Human relations are being replaced by relations with objects such as mobile phones or cars, and a cash economy replaces the traditional sense of community and existed that existed earlier. Now, these cultural differences pose several political and economic challenges, right? That's obvious, it has to happen, but we discuss only the cultural challenges right now, okay? So companies venturing abroad, they have to be very careful. They have to understand the country's social and cultural nuances. Now, Kali Chand, in his research in 2012, he mentioned that in France, it pays to take your counterparts to a trendy restaurant post meeting, and in Argentina, one might be expected to give a kiss on the cheek as opposed to a handshake. In some countries, as in Japan, saying no directly is not considered appropriate. Companies that venture outside their home countries find themselves adapting to different cultural norms in the global market. So, companies must understand the demographic changes that are happening in the Indian consumers. Okay, these cultural variations of consumer behaviors that are very important for any company to notice, understand, and adapt themselves with. So, this is a summarized understanding of what kind of changes that have happened, or what are the consequences of foreign influences on Indian consumer. So that's it for today. Get in touch with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. You can write to me at rajeshdurbala@gmail.com. You can download my Android app, RD Tutorials. Do subscribe to my channel. Thank you and bye-bye.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.